I've been asked to explain the correlation between aperture, shutter and ISO when it comes to exposure. Now, it is a bit like juggling and keeping all the balls in the air, and the thing that people don't appreciate is it's what you want to create photographically that determines what ratio you use these three properties in. The easiest way to describe this or to explain this is to use an analogy. Let's imagine for a moment that the camera is actually a set of lock gates on a river or a canal, and the light that we need to enter the camera to get the correct exposure is the water. Now, to get a given volume of water through the lock gate, we can do it in one of two ways. We can either open the gates a tiny amount for a long time to let the water drain through, or we open the gates really wide and it only needs to be open for a short amount of time because obviously the water will rush through. Now, the correlation is that the width of the gates opening is the aperture, how big the hole is to allow a greater or a smaller volume of light into the lens and onto the sensor. And the shutter is how quick the gates are open. So if you open for a long time, more light is allowed, there's more time to allow the light to gather through. And as we've spoken previously about apertures, then you're controlling depth of field with how tiny the hole is or how big the hole is in your lock gates. So where does the ISO come in? Well, the ISO basically, for want of a daft analogy, is the person stood the other side of the lock gates. It's how sensitive they are to that water. It's how much water they get hit with before they've had enough. In the old days, ISO related to the sensitivity of film. The lower the ISO, the less sensitive the film was and the more light it needed, but the finer the grain, so the smoother the tonal contrast in the picture. In today's parlance, that's related to digital noise. So the lower the ISO setting, the less gritty your picture is. The higher the ISO setting, the more sensitive your sensor is and the less light it needs to form an image, but the trade-off is more digital noise, which appears as more grain, less smooth tonal transition. And it's really that simple. So if you think of the aperture as how wide the gates are, the shutter, how long the gates are open, and the ISO, how much water you're able to stand before you get fed up, you're not going to go far wrong. And in a very, very simple sense, that's basically the exposure triangle, because it's those three properties mixed together that create A, different effects, and B, you need to sort of pay Peter, Rob Paul to pay Peter, to get the right exposure. And it really is that sort of simple. I hope that explanation makes your understanding a little bit easier. Once you get that, everything else falls into place, I promise.